There's no comments or questions. I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion do pass.
Motion do pass.
We have a second?
Do you want to say the LC number?
Oh, yeah, that's a
Sorry.
good call.
LC number is 4727. It's not on that.
And it's LC number 1727?
4727.
4727. 28.
Sorry, I've been rusty.
Yeah, a little rusty and flipped to the wrong page. There we go. Thank you. It's LC number 472728S. All in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Bill passes unanimously. Moving on to SB 208, that's Senator Dolezal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have Senate Bill 208, which is enabling legislation for Senate Resolution 189, which we'll take up next, which would be a constitutional amendment to allow counties in boards of education in fast growth school districts to choose to levy impact fees for capital construction. Senator Still and I both represent Forsyth County, which is the fastest growing county of the state. And we have seen a significant burden placed on taxpayers to essentially fund the new construction of capital projects for schools. We currently, in law, allow the collection of impact fees for roads, for park and rec, for libraries, for 911 and fire, but we do not allow the levying of impact fees for schools, which is oftentimes the largest expense borne by a community that is fast growing. High schools now are pushing $80 to $100 million apiece. So if you're not familiar with the impact fee laws in the state of Georgia, this comes under those, but it's quite the process if you're a municipality, to get to levy an impact fee. You have to form an impact fee committee. It has to be made up of largely members of the development community. They make a recommendation after a study is done, and then essentially the county, and in this case the Board of Education, can levy up to new developments pro rata share of the burden they're placing on the infrastructure. So when it comes to the types of things that we have fees or taxes around, this is probably one of the most fair ways that we collect revenue in the state of Georgia, because it's directly tied to studies and has limits on them such that they're only funding their pro rata share. One thing that I think is worth pointing out in the enabling legislation is this is not a statewide mandate. This would only apply to fast-growing school systems. The key to that is on line 41 to 45. We have two separate triggers of what defines a high-growth system. It needs to have had a 20% or more growth during the immediate 10-year period, which right away limits the vast majority of school systems in the state. And then the second one narrows that and tailors that even further to those that have had expenditures of $250 million or more of capital construction during the same preceding 10-year period. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions. Do appreciate the committee passing this out last year, and hopefully we can do the same today.
Any questions, comments from the author?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, how many districts across the state would this impact? And second question, did the school boards ask for this, because you're using it based on population of that particular county, right? Or school district?
Growth of the district, yeah.
Growth.
Correct.
Okay.
So we can't do population bills, as you know. So this looks at those systems that are having hyper growth and hyper capital outlays. To answer your question, my home district of Forsyth County, the Board of Education passed a unanimous resolution in support of that. They actually came and testified the first time that we heard this last year. I know that the chairman and I have had conversations. This is something that Gwinnett, some districts within his area are interested in. I know Cherokee County has expressed interest in this. I know Henry County has expressed interest in this as well. We really only have a couple pockets in the state that are growing that much and spending that much money, so this would be pretty narrowly tailored to just those.
I'm not worried. Southwest Georgia, we're shrinking. We're not growing.
We're hoping to get you to the point where you need this one day.
I'll be dead and gone. That's how enthusiastic. No, I should not say that. But so only a few. have you had any feedback from any of these counties that may be included, or have they come to ask for your assistance with
You're saying
that
like if
growth?
we were to broaden it and make it apply to more?
No.
The ones that I mentioned before have all either one-off or collectively as a collective board passed resolutions in favor of it.
But you've not had any negative responses from those potential?
Correct. The only negatives
Districts.
that I've heard, I think we heard testimony of this, was from some developers and some members of maybe the apartment association, I think may have came and testified against this, if my memory serves correct. But, yeah, and I don't know if you caught this the first time I said it, I think it's worth saying it again. I was part of the formation of road impact fees in Forsyth County back in 2015. I was appointed to a commission by a county commissioner to look into that. But that committee had to be made up of at least 50% members from the development community. So the resolution that we passed was essentially the people that worked in the development community, either developers, road builders, home builders, et cetera, passed a resolution in favor of impact fees for the roads, because they basically said, look, we got to fund this infrastructure. We're going to kill the golden goose. And so it creates this tension that ultimately tends to usually not land at the maximum amount that would be allowed under law to be charged, but usually falls somewhere underneath that, but does still provide a revenue stream to fund capital construction to ensure that infrastructure keeps up. But this is something we see in a number of states around the country that allow local municipalities to pull that lever if they wish to pull it.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Yeah, and I've seen this, Senator Sims, even in surrounding counties, to my home county, where they've had to put, zoning moratoriums and other things in place,
Yeah.
waiting on schools to come in just because they, completely run out of room to put trailers in and move students around. So it becomes a real issue in Metro Atlanta. With that, if there's no other comments or questions, would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass. Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. And that's LC 49-1280. Moving on to SR 189. It's also Senator Dolezal.
And this is just the constitutional amendment to put this on the ballot to allow the voters of Georgia to decide whether we should allow the collection of impact fees for schools.
Any comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Moving right along to SB 147, Senator Steele. Oh, and backing up to the previous one, the LC number on that was LC 49.
1675S.
No, backing up to the previous one, it was LC 49-1327. Now you're all set to go, Senator.
Got it. We don't have that version? We have a different version? Which one?
That's for yours.
Sorry for the confusion, y'all. We had to make sure we had the right LC number, which we do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow Education Committee members. I come to you today to bring, again for your consideration, SB 147, the Boundless Opportunities for Georgia Students Act. Last year, as you may recall, this bill received passage in this committee and in Senate rules, did not make it off the Senate floor table prior to crossover. Bringing this on behalf of my constituents in Fulton, Gwinnett, and Forsyth, which I share with 3 of the folks here on this committee. This legislation is simple. It allows Georgia families to seek the best public education options for their child. A child's zip code should not be the deciding factor in determining their future. That's why this bill is called Boundless Opportunities. County and city boundaries should not determine educational opportunities or outcomes for our students. This is particularly true in Metro Atlanta, where moving even 1 block can place a child in a different school system without the parent ever realizing it until they go to register for the upcoming year and discover their student can no longer attend the same school. Current law says that a school or school district cannot receive state funds for a non-resident student unless the residency district permits it. This bill simply clarifies that these important, often life-changing decisions regarding a child's educational future should be left up solely to the discretion of the family and the enrolling district. In other words, the district of residency should not be able to hold a child hostage and refuse to allow state funds to transfer with the student. There are several things this bill does not do. It does not take any money out of the public system. It does not take any money from a local school system. All local property tax revenue, including the amount paid by the student's family, will remain in the residency district. It does not leave the residency district worse off. The bill before you ensures that no money will be transferred if it would result in a residency district being left with less than $10,000 per student. So that's the floor, is $10,000. It also includes a cap on the tuition that can be charged by the enrolling school district for providing only virtual instruction. This is a small but important step to empowering students and parents who should be the primary decision maker when it comes to their education. Right now, a parent's public school options in many areas of the state are limited unless they have the resources to move to a higher performing school district or pay for private school. In discussing this bill in the off-season with my local delegation, which I share with Senator Dolezal, I've learned that Forsyth County's highly successful virtual program is now available to enroll out-of-district students if this bill receives final passage. This would be a game changer for students in other regions of the state who currently have little or no educational options other than Georgia Virtual. In closing, I want to reiterate this bill is a win-win. It keeps public money in the public education system while also giving the parent a greater voice in determining the best school for his or her child, regardless of residency or zip code. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm willing to take any questions.
Any questions, comments from the committee?
Row number 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. We had our pre-legislative breakfast, and I remember hearing how excited our superintendent was over this bill. And I'm wondering if you could maybe just give us an example, hypothetical example. You know, Johnny's in South Georgia. Maybe they don't have a great STEM program. Forsyth County's got one of the best in the state. Johnny wants to enroll virtually in Forsyth's STEM program. What happens in terms of flow of funds, and what would happen should this bill pass?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Let's take, I've got a full spreadsheet of every county here. Let's take Clayton County, just going off an example here. Clayton County receives on their FTE local $3,463. Their FTE state is $6,942. Their equalization is $1,064. So the total cost to educate that child between state, federal, and local dollars is $10,406.50. Because of the $10,000 floor on this, the family would be able to use $406.50 towards the total cost of that full-time virtual transfer, leaving $10,000 in the residency district, and there would be no additional expense to educate that child. And then the family would still have to cover the difference on that, but at least it's giving them a small amount of money to use towards that virtual transfer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Yes, sir. Question.
Go ahead, Senator Sims.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So how do we, give me again, how do we determine the validity of the transfer of the students with the tax dollars, with the money flowing with them? How do we make that determination? Who makes that determination and how do we do it?
The receiving district sets the tuition rate. The residency district superintendent and the receiving superintendent would have to agree on that, so there would still have to be an agreement between them on that, and then nothing would transfer below. So if we were to use an APS as an example, where it's over $20,000 to educate a child, compared to less than $10,000 in Forsyth County, with drastically different outcomes, the tuition fee would still be set. Superintendent. So if a child wanted to transfer from APS to, again, just using Forsyth as the example, if that number was, say, $5,000, then only $5,000 would be transferred out of that equalization.
So if a parent comes to the district and says, I want to be transferred based on the formula that you gave me, and also based on the scores, what are you going to use to say what's good and what's bad? Are we using test scores? What's the, because you're saying that they're transferring from a low-performing school, or not necessarily? They're
No.
just anywhere they want to go?
Anywhere they want to go.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any further questions, comments? Oh, fine. Senator Setzler?
To the author, is this limited to online learning, or can this be a bricks and mortar transfer,
This is just a virtual.
virtual only?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, and that, which makes it simpler and okay.
Yes.
Does the language you've added on line 75 through 79, that limiting language, does that exist anywhere else in code? I mean, is that limiting to a certain percentage? I'm on 1675S. The charge to exceed shall not exceed 2/3. Just explain what that means. I'm just trying to understand.
It's just essentially saying that we're not going to drop below the $10,000 threshold on the floor. So there's always going to be an amount left behind
Okay.
of the residency district. What we don't want to do is cripple low performance. To Senator Sims' point, I don't think we want to do anything to take the local dollars out. And so this is just saying that the amount of the tuition such local unit of administration may charge shall not exceed 2/3 of the total revenue, less the federal. It's just giving us a formula to work off of on the federal dollar contribution with that.
Okay, so the receiving district can't charge some premium. It's got to be essentially take the $10,000 out or whatever that amount is, and then it limits what they can charge. So they're not asking for, for example, if the student's home district earned $14,000, you keep $10,000 behind, they have $4,000 to bring with them. The receiving district can't charge them $10,000 to get in because you're,
Correct. It's putting some limits on where they can go with that.
okay, thank you. That's why I read it.
Any further questions, comments? Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to pass LC 491675S.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second, do pass. All in favor, raise your hand. Oh, yeah, I'm not supposed to vote. Any opposed? Passes 4-2. That is all we have on the agenda today. I think this is probably the quickest Education Committee hearing I've ever had and probably ever will have with these bills that already passed through. But with that, we are adjourned.